Join call now. This call may be recorded for transcribed.
Okay. All right. So, good morning, everybody. Sorry about that. I think we're having some connectivity issues here in Little Rock. This sexual assault prevention subcommittee meeting, the stream just started about a minute ago online. So if there's any thing that needs to be sort of like an executive session, just let me know, and we can facilitate that from our end via the stream. And also, you can text or call my number at any point. So, yeah, just wanted to let you guys know.
Excellent. Appreciate it, Priscilla.
Hi, good morning.
Delegate Carly? Okay.
Hi, thank you. This is Delegate Amber Canas Bakrati. I'm on the line. How is my signal?
We can hear you.
Excellent. I was having challenges. Thank you. Lorene, can you let me know what committee members are on the line and if we have quorum?
Chair Crotty, this is Angelita Benelli for up until about 12:45. And but who we have on the line is Delegate Stewart, who has answered.
Thank you, Ms. Benelli, for helping us and helping Lorene. Yes, yes, Delegate Stewart. What we'll do is I'll send out a text to my colleagues so that we can move forward with the committee. We need one more delegate to start with our reports. I'll go back and hold. Thank you.
Delegate Paul Begay.
Good morning, Delegate DeGay. This is Angelita Benally. We are waiting for one more member of the Sexual Assault Prevention Subcommittee to start the meeting.
Ms. Benally, this is Delegate Crotty. Actually, through our resolution, Delegate Paul Begay is on the committee.
Okay. All right. I didn't.
Yeah, I just wanted to update that, and I meant to. I spoke with Delegate Begay this morning to confirm, and I appreciate him calling in. And so that is something if we could reflect on the record.
Okay.
And now seeing that we have 3 delegates, which makes a quorum, Ms. Benally, I can call the meeting to order at 10:14. Can you please read the agenda? Thank you.
Okay. Chairwoman Crotty, if I could do roll call with that.
Yes, thank you. I appreciate that. Yes, please.
Yeah, we have a proposed Sexual Assault Prevention Subcommittee of the Navajo Committee of the 24th Navajo Nation Council. It's a special meeting on Friday, August 21st, 2020. And this is the roll call. Honorable Chairwoman Amber Kenneth-Crotty.
Delegate Amber Kenneth-Crotty is present, calling in from Window Rock, Navajo Nation. Thank you.
Okay. Honorable Vice Chair Nathaniel Brown. Okay, Vice Chair Nathaniel Brown does not answer. Honorable Vince James. Honorable Vince James does not answer. Honorable Wilson C. Stewart Jr.
Present for Fort Defiance.
Thank you. Honorable Eugene So. Honorable Eugene So does not answer. Honorable Paul Begay.
Delegate Paul Begay is calling in, Window Rock, Arizona. Thank you.
Thank you. Madam Chair, you have 3 members answering roll call. That constitutes a quorum.
Thank you so much, Ms. Benally. And now seeing that we have a quorum, let's move on to invocation. If I may ask invocation to the committee. Thank you.
Good morning, we'll say a short prayer before we get our meeting started. So, Heavenly Father, we come to you this morning. Again, we ask you for your blessings upon each and every one of us, Heavenly Father God. I ask you to bless us today as we discuss the issues related to our Navajo Nation and our community members, our youth, our children, our elders, Heavenly Father God. Our family members like that, relatives that we know like that, Heavenly Father God, today, and the reports that we hear today, Heavenly Father God, the collaboration that's going to be set forth, Heavenly Father God. This is just our second meeting coming together, Heavenly Father God. Ask you for your guidance in that way to be with us and to do what we believe is best for our people like that, Heavenly Father God. Ask you watch over our individuals like that too, those victims like that, Heavenly Father God. Help us continue to heal, continue to be well again, Heavenly Father God, to be whole again. Ask you bless like that in that way for us, Heavenly Father God. And Heavenly Father God, ask you bless all of our Navajo Nation Council delegates, our President, Vice President, our judicial staff, and HEMA, Justice Joanne Jane, Heavenly Father God. And ask you bless our relatives and families near and far, Heavenly Father God, from they, wherever they may be, Heavenly Father God. And I ask you to bless also our military personnel, as well as those serving overseas in the United States, Heavenly Father God. I ask you to bless our practitioners, our preachers, our pastors, Heavenly Father God, our traditional practitioners, our medicine men and women, Heavenly Father God, our roadmen and like that, Heavenly Father God, and the paraphernalia that they use, Heavenly Father God, I bless them for that, and I bless our livestock as well, and the livestock that you have blessed us with, Heavenly Father, the animal kingdom like that, Heavenly Father God, our vehicles that get us from our destination in safety, Heavenly Father God, I ask you to continue to bless our homes as well, Heavenly Father God, the food that we take each and every day, Heavenly God. And forgive us our shortcomings, our shortfalls, Heavenly Father God. We only do the best that we can each and every day, Heavenly Father God. Help us to be forgiving in that way, Heavenly Father God. And Heavenly Father God, again, I thank you for this wonderful day, Heavenly Father God. Wherever I may have left out, wherever I have not mentioned at this time, Heavenly God, you know my prayers, you know my thoughts, Heavenly Father God. I ask you to bless them in that way, Heavenly Father God. These things I say in your holy Son's name, Jesus Christ. Amen.
Oh, yes, thank you for setting the tone for this meeting and bringing in that positive energy. Ms. Benali, I'm sorry. Are there any, do we need to recognize any guests or visiting officials, colleagues on the phone today?
Hi, my name is Denise Billy. I'm the coordinator for the Missing and Murdered Indigenous Persons for the District of New Mexico.
Thank you, Ms. Billy, for joining the call, and we look forward to your report. Are there any other guests or visiting officials on the line?
This is Jolene Holgate from the Coalition to Stop Violence Against Native Women.
Oh, yeah, Deja, thank you for joining us. Before we move on, are there any other callers on the line?
Good morning. This is Sherelle recording.
Oh, yeah, hey, thank you for helping us. We appreciate it. And hearing no others, we'll move on. Ms. Benali now, and I appreciate it if you can read the agenda into the record. Thank you so much. Ms. Benali, are you there?
I'm sorry, I had my phone on mute.
Okay.
Okay,
Thank
sorry,
you.
I apologize. I was doing great. Yes, Madam Chair. You have your proposed agenda of the Sexual Assault Prevention Subcommittee of the Navajo Committee of the 24th Navajo Nation Council. Special meeting via teleconference, Friday, August 21st, 2020, and it's scheduled for 10 o'clock a.m. One, call a special meeting to order, roll call invocation. 2, recognize guests and visiting officials. 3, review and adopt the agenda. 4, review and adopt journals. None. 5, receive reports. A is a report by Amber Kenneth-Karate, Chairwoman of SAP, on the historical overview of SAPS. B, report from Denise Billy, contractor, coordinator on the missing and murdered Indigenous people, USAO, District of New Mexico. C, report from Tony Garcia, MMIP, Clear, United States District Attorney's Office, District of Arizona Office. D, Office of the U.S. Attorney, District of Arizona, Tribal Liaison, Kayoko Patterson. And and A, USA, Alex Samuel. E, report from Virginia. department.
Ms. Benali, this is Delegate Crotty. Hearing that we don't have a second on the agenda, what is the recommendation?
Is it, I would
Sure.
say,
Crotty? Aye. Aye.
Thank you. I apologize, Ms. Benali. Can you guide me in terms of, as we telecommunicate, how do I ask you to call for the vote, or do I ask them by individually?
you can ask them individually, and then we can record it, or Ms. Sherelle Nota can also assist with the roll call vote.
Okay, thank you. I'll defer to Deja the vote, but I did hear Delegate Stewart say aye, and Delegate Paul, the director, did vote in favor of the agenda. Thank you. Okay. Thank you for your patience, and for our relatives who are listening online. We do recognize that there's some challenges with the sound, and so our team is working on that. With that being said, we'll move down to reports. Colleagues, I'll need a motion and a second for the report. And I'm sorry, Ms. Benali, can you just please guide me in this? Do you read it into the record and then I call for the motion?
Okay, we already dispensed with the adopting the agenda. Is that correct?
Yes.
And
Now
then
number
number 4 is the review and adopt the journals, which is none. And 5 is receiving reports. And you can go on to the first report. And after the person or the individual has given their report, you request for a motion and a second. And then they'll go into questions. And then after the questions, then you call for the vote.
Thank you, Ms. Benali. I haven't chaired a committee in a few months. I appreciate the guidance. So moving on to receiving reports, colleagues, I did email the latest, what we consider a logic model that condenses the work of the 23rd Navajo Nation Sexual Assault Prevention Subcommittee. And so I'll be referring to that document, and I will ask our public information officers if they can post that to the live stream for the individuals who are viewing online. As we move forward, colleagues, if you look onto your email, this has not been updated since September 30th, 2019. But one of the issues that the subcommittee addressed was the Amber Alert system. What we still need to do in terms of a committee is testing the Amber Alert system to ensure it's working, and a report on the official process and protocol from the Director of Navajo Department of Emergency Management, Harlan Cleveland. He will also be providing and getting an update on the status of our E911 and rural addressing, which is in progress, and will receive and request an update from MC Baldwin.
This call may be
for those
recorded or
prevention
transcribed.
policies in the schools, colleges, and throughout Navajo Nation. Our goal is to establish a Children's Day on Navajo Nation in, I believe the date was in November, and to amend Title 17 amendments to strengthen the sex crimes and help with victims. And as I move down, another initiative was this tri-state coalition. As we have victims and survivors in all 3 states, we needed a concerted effort to help out. And so there's Restoring Ancestral Winds. They're a tribal coalition in the Utah area who were going to help us coordinate the development of this coalition. We would review the resolution and decide if we needed a work group and establish legislation to develop the coalition work group to help us with the challenges of establishing a tri-state coalition. And as I move down, colleagues, this is all part of the attachment that was sent out. Another area was the data sharing agreement for Navajo Nation. This is maybe one of the priorities in terms of how our Navajo Nation programs share data, how we share data with our 638, our federal like IHS and BIE schools, so that we know what is happening on Navajo Nation. This will be our Navajo Epidemiology Department is willing to work with us and help us understand the gaps of data sharing. We'll be coordinating with the Office of the President to develop a data clearinghouse. And we would like to set up a meeting with the Office of the President, Vice President, and the division directors to not only develop the data clearinghouse, but also data sharing agreements and implement those agreements across Navajo Nation. One area that we were very successful is awareness in terms of human trafficking. So Delegate Brown coordinated meetings and looking at policies. He sits on the Arizona, the governor of Arizona has a policy team to address human trafficking in Arizona. And with that work, we were able to meet with Casey families and develop a white paper on human trafficking on Navajo Nation, some of the challenges, why, some of the nuances, and what the Department of Social Services start identifying children who may have been trafficked, where it may have just been a case of neglect or abuse or assault, has really turned into a trafficking case as those children were used for exchange for goods, for drugs, for food. And so we want to continue to educate our tribal leadership and work on education regarding human trafficking, the prevention, and the support of our young ones who are being trafficked and then coming back to Navajo Nation and have very limited resources. Other areas where our LGBTQ issues in the data, we do not have any data in understanding how this community is affected by sexual assault and violence. And so with some of the work of the committee members, we integrated some community education on the impact of the LGBTQI community members, and hopefully we'll integrate that in any of our recommendations. We also worked on sexual harassment within Navajo Nation departments and concerns regarding employees listed as sex offenders. We sent a memo out to Chief of Police and met with Navajo Nation Department of Personnel Management. And we're looking at how we can not only mandate training, but make sure that it's training that is focused on healing and providing solutions in reducing sexual harassment in the workplace, and if advocates are needed for Navajo Nation employees who are dealing with sexual. It's also, we have seen cases of and women harassing women. And so it's not what we may assume, but we just want to ensure possible in was revenge porn. And as you hear the report, all of our
This call may be recorded
and
or
develop a
transcribed.
Navajo Nation sexual violence, intimate partner violence, and family violence prevention to eliminate violence and suicide act. This language was provided by Dr. Christine Benali, who was part of the sexual violence prevention work group. Some of this language was added into I know that Law and Order Committee is now working on those Title 17 amendments, and when they are ready, our hope is that that will improve victims' rights here on Navajo Nation, and that we strengthen the laws. And so, colleagues, as succinctly as I could, I went through the history of SAP. The 23rd Navajo Nation Council was, as all of us were impacted by the abduction and ultimately how we lost Ash and Mike. And in response to that, we recognized that there is so much work that we need to do to prevent violence in our communities, prevent sexual assault, and help heal the community. And so we developed the work group that was very successful, and there's still work to be done. And so I appreciate the time as committee members being on the call, and all of the advocates, the families, and the survivors who are healing. We recognize and acknowledge that trauma, and we also recognize that it's our responsibility and duty to help them with the healing process. And so I'll pause there, committee members, and if I could get a motion, I'd appreciate it, and a second, and then if there's any questions, committee members. Thank you.
Motion to approve, Madam Chair.
Thank you. So motion by Delegate Stewart. Can I get a second? Second, are there any questions?
Madam Chair?
Oh, yeah, Delegate Stewart.
Not a question, but just a clarification, I guess, or a comment would be to ask, so with the report that you provided, those initiatives there that you stated, those are what we would continue to work on as a committee. Because it sounds like some of them have continued on, but then there's some of them that are just kind of like on the wayside waiting to be acted on again. Is that correct?
Thank you, Delegate Stewart. So yes, some of these issues do need additional support from the committee, but it is also an opportunity to add additional issues, and we'll work with our staff to provide the reports and the data and the solutions in addressing them, whether that's to legislate and amend Navajo Nation law, or if that's to amend policies and procedures, or advocating with our state, federal, and international leadership. So from this, we can add, if there's an area that you feel should be added, or we can wait till after the reports and hearing from the committee, we can add additional items.
Delegate James here.
Oh, yes, Delegate James. Thank you for joining the call. I hope you received the email, and I just finished the review of the sexual assault prevention. Do you have any questions or comments?
No, my question was going to be in regards to your report, because the one that I received, it's not downloading. I mean, it downloaded, but it has only the output part of the output activities long term, and then part of the short term. So I don't know if it needs to be on PDF for it to show the whole thing, like the whole column. Because there's part of it missing. Just wanted to mention that. But I heard your report though.
Okay, thank you, Delegate James, for that recommendation. I'm going to reformat to a PDF and send it out right now. Thank you.
Thanks.
Hearing no other questions or comments, we can move on to the vote. Sherelle, Shadeja, can you roll call the vote? Thank you.
Okay. Vote. Honorable Nathaniel Brown, how do you vote? Honorable Vince James.
Delegate Vince James votes.
and
This call may
procedures
be
for
recorded or
responding
transcribed.
to and addressing MMIP issues. Which could be part of training for law enforcement agencies and assistance in promoting to improve data collection. So basically, that is pretty much, what we're tasked to do. But in the meantime, like I said, this is a fairly new position, and we're working with other stakeholders in New Mexico. We've been working with the New Mexico Missing and Murdered Indigenous Women Task Force. We made other connections with the Missing and Murdered Dinner Relatives, and as well as other stakeholders within the tribe, within the Navajo tribe, and as well as other pueblos throughout up and down the Rio Grande. We've been making connections with them to try to see what kind of, issues that they're having, whether it be with law enforcement or victim services or training needs and stuff like that. But currently, like I said, we're going to be making contact with tribal leaders, and we're going to be establishing a virtual tribal consultation in the coming months, and that, open to stakeholders, task members with MMIP issues, and tribal leaders. So again, that's going to be coming up shortly, and I've been trying to collect data from border towns on MMIP cases. There is some issues of the statistics are not input correctly, so there's a lot of issues surrounding data collections, and so that's what I'm trying to gather at this time. And like I said, this is a fairly new program, and so we're kind of like starting up from scratch and try to figure out what tribal communities' needs are. So yeah, that's pretty much it.
Okay. I know we're having some challenges with the sound, but thank you, Shamayaja, for your report. Committee members, do you have any questions for Ms. Billy? Ms. Billy, this is Delegate Crotty. I want to thank you for your report. And in terms of context, this is probably the first, it's the second time the Sexual Assault Prevention Subcommittee has met under the 24th Navajo Nation Council. What I may ask is if you can provide the committee some written background on not only Operation Lady Justice, but the role of the MMIP program. And in speaking with our federal partners, it's not clear how the length of your program. And so if you could give us some guidance in terms of, as a contractor, if you're on contract, is it a yearly contract, or is there a longer commitment than just a year from our federal partners? Thank you.
So I believe it's a federal contract, and it's contracted for 1 year, and depending on how much we are able to provide back to the Department of Justice, it may be funded for another year or so. So really, like I said, this is a fairly new program, but some of our duties, it's to develop protocols and procedures to come up with protocols for all law enforcement, because I think some departments don't require cases to be input in NANIS or the NCMEC, which is the national just providing information to law enforcement agencies that there's other resources available. So that's part of, like, what we're trying to do is make agencies become aware of other resources that are available out there. Let me see. And then, of course, we want to implement community action plans to identify and coordinate responses with law enforcement agencies, with the FBI, the local sheriff's office, or the tribal department, as well as other departments such as the U.S. Marshal Services, to help in coordinating responses. So there's a lot of resources that are out there that that don't really identify themselves, that could be available with tribal communities. We also want to identify a lot of training issues that maybe some departments are lacking, technical assistance, and supporting, like I said, the community action plans. So we want to know what issues that are coming up that maybe we could be able to provide back to the Department of Justice, and then allowing resources to come in and assist in those areas. Does that kind of give you, answer your question?
Yes, thank you for that reply. As we learn more about the initiative and how we can partner together. Committee members, are there any questions for Ms. Billy? My second question then, Ms. Billy, not hearing any questions, is can you help us understand the challenges with the NCIC system? It's our understanding that this is a process by law enforcement, and how can you assist in helping us improve entering missing persons into that database and updating and providing that information to the family? Thank you.
So I think that comes back, like I said, we're going to be meeting with tribal leaders, with tribal police chief, division directors on issues regarding that, inputting information into NCIC. So at this point, I guess we have to identify, why it's not being inputted into the system. So I can't really answer your question at this time, because I don't really know what the issue is at this time. But definitely, when we do speak when we have our virtual consultation with tribal leaders and police chiefs, I think those are some of the issues that will be brought up, and then I think we can address it at a later time.
Thank you for that response. response. Committee members, there is a tribal consultation scheduled for September 2nd for the missing and murdered Indigenous people. We will send out a link to the committee, and as we work on the Navajo Nation position and working with the families to share their stories. Are there any other questions or comments from the committee members?
Madam Chair, just a comment.
Yes, Delegate Stewart.
Yes. Thank you for the report, update, and being that you are a new entity to this area as well. I think it would be neat to see what we can develop together and how we can work together not only for Navajo Nation, but also for the other tribes, as you mentioned as well, that you will be assisting with, and to see what comes and transpires from that meeting come the 2nd, I believe, of September, and then we can go from there again. So thank you. That's all, Chair.
Thank you very much, Delegate Stewart. Ms. Bowie, did you have a response or?
Yeah, so I think once we're done with the tribal consultations with all the tribal members, or not the tribal members, but the tribal communities and their tribal leaders, you know, we're going to definitely, you know, get a response back to the tribal communities and try to address issues on how we would be able to assist them in those areas. So again, it's going to be a process, and you know, but we definitely want to consult with tribal leaders on issues that they're having, so we can address those from a federal level.
Thank you, Ms. Billy, for that response. Committee members, any other questions or comments? Hearing none, I will ask for the vote. Shadeja, can you please assist with the vote? Thank you.
Honorable Chairwoman, we don't have a motion or second on this report.
I apologize. Thank you so much. If I could ask for a motion, please.
Motion to accept report. Paul.
Thank you, Delegate Begay. Can I receive a second, please?
Second, Stewart.
Thank you, Delegate Stewart. Any other questions or concerns, or we'll move to the vote? Shadeja, please help us with the vote now. Thank you for helping me.
Okay. Honorable Nathaniel Brown, how do you vote? Honorable Vince James? Honorable Vince James, how do you vote? Honorable Wilson C. Stewart Jr.
Green.
Honorable Wilson Stewart Jr. votes green. Honorable Eugene So. Honorable Eugene So. Honorable Paul Begay.
Delegate Paul Begay votes green. Thank you.
Honorable Paul Begay votes green. Honorable Nathaniel Brown. Honorable Vince James. Honorable Eugene So. Chair, you have 2 in favor, 0 opposed, 5 not voting.
Thank you, Shadeja. Can you mark? Oh.
Let me rephrase that. 2 in favor, 0 opposed, and 4 not voting.
Thank you. For the record, Delegate Nathaniel Brown text, and he will be excused. as he is attending a funeral. Thank you. Moving on with the report. Thank you, Ms. Billy. If the next report is, do we have Tony Garcia, the MMIP coordinator with the United States District Attorney's Office, District of Arizona, on the line?
Yes, I'm here.
Hello, Mr. Garcia. Thank you for joining the call. What we do at the committee is you have about 10 to 15 minutes to present, and then there'll be time for the committee members to ask questions. Are you ready for your report?
Yes, I am.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Garcia. Please proceed.
Good morning, everybody. First, I want to apologize for I forgot that Navajo is 1 hour ahead of the rest of Arizona. So my apologies on getting on the phone late, but I did catch the end of MMIP Coordinator Billy's report. First, I want to thank you for the opportunity to speak with all of you. This is hopefully just the first of many chances to meet with you, and hopefully when COVID settles down, we can meet in person, because just real quick about me, I'm one of those kind of people that likes to meet people in person and have discussions in person rather than over the phone. So I function better that way. A little bit about my background. I just retired back in May from the FBI. I worked 25 years as a special agent, and in with the last 5 years as a supervisory special agent, I've worked the bulk of my career in violent crimes. I've worked everything from serial killers to online child predators, gangs, a lot of gang work in Southern California. And then I came over to Tucson in 2014, where I briefly worked some national security matters and domestic terrorism. And then I transferred up to Phoenix, where I was the civil rights squad supervisor and public corruption supervisor. Went on from there and volunteered to take on a newly formed Indian Country Crime Squad. And I was the supervisor there. And at that point, I had the Safe Trails Task Force in Phoenix. I had the Safe Trails Task Force out of Pine Top and up in Gallup. So I've worked on the Navajo, and I want to continue working with you folks along with the 21 other tribes that I have responsibility for here in the District of Arizona. I'm very familiar over those 5 years with a lot of the chronic problems that impact the issue we're talking about today, missing and murdered Indigenous persons and the missing and murdered Indigenous women movement as well. Prior to becoming an agent, I was an attorney. I have my bachelor's degree from University of California, Irvine, and a law degree from the University of Arizona. So hopefully I can utilize those critical thinking skills as we move forward in this program. I can tell you that I really enjoyed my time working with the various tribal nations, tribal police departments, and that's kind of what drove me to do this job and put in for it. And fortunately, U.S. Attorney Mike Bailey selected me, and I'm very happy to take on this opportunity. So I'm really looking forward to working with you. I know Denise touched on some of the stuff that we work on the MMIP coordinator program. The big three things are protocols, the data issues, and developing coordinated federal assistance when requested by tribal agencies. The protocols themselves, and Denise will probably concur or agree with me, as many of the MMIP coordinators that I speak to, we meet on a weekly basis via telephone. And I can tell you that we all recognize that tribal police departments are different amongst all the tribes. So the challenge for me is I got 22 federally recognized tribes here in Arizona. Several of them overlap with multiple states. So I've got California, Nevada, Utah, Colorado, and New Mexico as well to contend with. And we all know that what might work on Navajo may not work on Havasu Pai, Crit, Tohono White River. So my challenge is going to be, once these protocols are finalized, then my challenge, Denise's challenge, and every other coordinator's challenge is, how do we make them fit and work based on the capabilities of each individual tribal police department? So that's going to be a big challenge, and something that I welcome. Like I said, I like working with people directly, and this is certainly something that I see myself doing on a fairly regular basis, traveling throughout Arizona, meeting with everybody. Again, once this COVID situation calms down and we can get back
help us. Just wanted to. Yes, I do hope that is gone soon, so that we can make a person-to-person appearance and get to know each other a lot better. Thank you again, and have a good day. Thank you.
Thank you, Delegate Padilla. Are there
And then also the report. In regards to the information that you shared with us, can you email some hard copied information on your behalf to the committee? Thank you.
Thank you, Delegate James. Mr. Garcia, Delegate James sits on the Law and Order Committee, and what we might and should do with the guidance of Delegate James is provide a hard copy to the Law and Order Committee, and hopefully arrange a report to the committee so that they are on board as they're the oversight of the Division of Public Safety. Any hard copy reports or materials, we can send out an email, or our staff assistant, Ms. Hope McDonald Lone Tree, can assist in getting that information to the committee members. Thank you. Do you have a response, Mr. Garcia?
Yeah, real quick. We are and I assume we're talking about protocols. We're not finalized with the protocols. They went through an initial review that myself and the other MMIP coordinators have submitted their comments and thoughts about. But absolutely, this is something that I would expect that we would have to meet and discuss on a regular basis about those protocols, and ultimately, how can we implement them and some of the challenges that we may face in implementing them. So absolutely, we can do that.
Thank you very much.
Any other questions from the committee members? Hearing none, I would like to ask Mr. Garcia, would you know approximately how many Navajos are missing that you're aware of? As a Navajo Nation leader, at this time, I'm not able to provide that answer. But if there's an approximation on what you've been able to gather, I think it'll be helpful. And knowing that this is not an official number, but gives us some guidance in terms of, because we do have our all volunteer group, the Navajo Nation Missing Persons, and they are holding and monitoring all of the missing persons on Navajo Nation. If you could give us either some guidance, or when do you expect that you would have a better number for the Navajo Nation? Thank you.
Thank you. And are you talking about your MMDR committee?
Yes.
I don't want to pull a number out of the air. When I looked at NamUs yesterday, there was 48 people across the state. I recall seeing maybe 2 from Navajo, and we both know that's not correct. So I can't give you a firm number right now. The guidance I can give you, because here are the challenges with NCIC, FBI, and DIA from a law enforcement perspective. It's not a crime for an adult to go missing. If they choose to leave the reservation or any community and not tell anybody, that's fine. There's no law broken. So we don't get, the FBI and no federal law enforcement agency can get involved in that without some sort of underlying crime, particularly one under the Major Crimes Act. So we would have to go back and probably go through Navajo police reports to really get a good look at that. And then we have to define a time period and go from there. And that's going to be a huge challenge. The number of missing adults under suspicious circumstances, I don't recall off the top of my head because I stopped working Navajo about 3 years ago. But I don't remember the number of cases that we had opened under those types of circumstances. But I know it was more than 1 or 2. And that's why I'm saying NamUs, the way NamUs is set up, it's not the best collection system, and that's why we need to move forward with the data collection. Where you folks can help me understand those numbers and start working on some of this is, I know, for instance, because I worked with Chief Tim Chavez down at Gila River very closely, as well as Chief Carl Auerbach. Both those agencies have people whose sole job is to work the missing people cases off of their communities. And I don't recall if Navajo has somebody like that or several people like that, but certainly that would be a beginning point if you don't, to start collecting that information from the various CI districts throughout Navajo. That would be helpful in trying to get to a true number. And then we can look into NamUs, we can look at NCIC, and that might give us a better picture and a closer official number. So that's something that I think your Law and Order Committee could take back to Chief Francisco, possibly, assuming that the rest of the council members agree, of developing some sort of position like that where they can start reviewing that information so we can get a better picture. But again, going back to 1940 is not going to be helpful. I would say start something that's much more attainable, which would be maybe from 2000 going forward. I can tell you that many of the cases we had last summer that we were looking at and reviewing for the NCIC missing persons audit, a lot of them were teenage runaways. And they accounted for a great number of those missings. So we cleared some of that up. I saw a number for Arizona being bannered about around 75. Again, that's just kind of looking at the various databases and taking into consideration the challenges of the inputs about, was proper ethnicity entered, were they purged from the system, et cetera. So those are the challenges. But I think certainly, if I was to give you one task to start working on, is have somebody who can, or multiple people who can work with the various CI districts up in Navajo and start collecting those reports and start doing a count, because that's probably the only way this is going to get done.
Thank you, Mr. Garcia, for that recommendation. What we can do is we can recommend that criminal investigations provide a report to Law and Order, and that'll be Mr. Henderson. And I did note that in my record. And if we could have Delegate James assist us with adding that to the Law and Order agenda. Thank you very much. Committee members, are there any other questions for Mr. Garcia at this time? Hearing none, Mr. Garcia, thank you for your, Okay. Thank you for your report, and then I'll ask Shadeja if you can assist with the voting. Thank you.
Honorable Nathaniel Brown is excused. Honorable Vince James. Honorable Vince
This is
James,
Delegate
how do you
James.
vote?
Delegate James votes green.
Honorable
Delegate
Vince James
James votes
votes
green.
green. Honorable Wilson C. Stewart Jr.
Green.
Honorable Wilson C. Stewart Jr. votes green. Honorable Eugene So. Honorable Eugene So. Honorable Paul Begay.
Delegate Paul Begay votes green. Thank you.
Honorable Paul Begay votes green. Chair, you have 3 in favor, 0 opposed, 3 not voting.
Oh, yeah, thank you, Shadeja. Thank you, Mr. Garcia. If you can stay on the line, it's my understanding that we do have Captain Mike Henderson with the criminal investigators who will be assisting with the report, and hopefully that can provide some insight into what are our next steps working together. Thank you very much. Moving on to the next report is I was asked from the Office of the U.S. Attorney that the next report be provided in executive session. Committee members, seeing if we can, I'm now looking. I'm going to ask if we could have a motion to suspend the floor rules and move to report from the Division of Social Services and the report from Public Safety, and move the Office of the U.S. Attorney down to after the report from Public Safety, and that would be executive session. Are there any questions from the committee on that recommendation?
No.
Okay, if I could get a motion to suspend the floor rules?
Motion to suspend to move that report to the bottom, Madam Chair.
Thank you, Delegate Stewart. May I receive a second?
Second, Delegate Paul Begay.
Thank you, Delegate Paul Begay. Any questions or comments? Hearing none. Shadeja, can you help me with the vote? Thank you.
Honorable Nathaniel Brown is excused. Honorable Vince James, how do you vote?
Legislative. Delegate James votes green.
Honorable Vince James votes green. Honorable Wilson C. Stewart Jr., how do you vote?
Green.
Honorable Wilson C. Stewart Jr. votes green. Honorable Eugene So. Honorable Eugene So. Honorable Paul Begay.
Begay votes green. Thank you.
Honorable Paul Begay votes green. Chair, you have 3 in favor, 0 opposed, 3 not voting.
Oh, yeah, Shadeja. Thank you for that, committee members. And so moving down to the next report will be the Division of Social Services. Is Miss Regina Yazzie on the line?
Yes, Honorable Madam Chair. Regina Yazzie is on the phone. Thank you.
Thank you, Miss Regina Yazzie. You are on the schedule to report on sexual assault stats or statistics. You have about 10 to 15 minutes. Thank you. You may proceed.
Yes, thank you. I did email to Ms. Spencer the written stats that I will review right now. And I just sent that about 15 minutes ago. So I will, this is regarding the FY 2020 stats as of January of this year to present. There were 134 new intakes received by victim witness advocates, none of which involved the type of abuse as sexual assault. There were 32 new residents that were admitted into the Shiprock shelter. 3 of those 32 reported type of abuse involved sexual assault. 71 new walk-ins were recorded by Shiprock shelter. 3 of the 71 walk-ins reported type of abuse involved sexual assault. Madam Chair, that is my report for the stats.
Thank you, Ms. Yazzie. Unfortunately, Ms. Spencer is, she is not she's unavailable right now. Can you please send that email? Do you have my email or Hope McDonald Lone Tree's email so we could get that to the committee?
Yes, I can. I will forward that. Yes.
Thank you. And so with that, is that the completion of your report?
Yes.
Okay, thank you. Committee members, may I receive a motion for the report?
Motion, Delegate Stewart.
Yes, thank you, Delegate Stewart. May I receive a second? Thank you. Delegates, I do need a second for this report so we could ask any questions.
Second, Delegate Paul Begay.
Thank you, Delegate Paul Begay. Are there any questions or comments from the committee regarding the report from the Division of Social Services? Not hearing one. I do have a question, Ms. Yazzie. Thank you for your report and the statistics. So to be clear, are these numbers just from 2020 to present? I just want to be clear, so that'll be January 1st to present. And if you could help me understand, it looks like you mentioned victim services. This committee, we focus on all sexual assault cases on Navajo, and so I'm just concerned with your numbers because according to our partners like SART teams and IHS, there has been more reports of sexual assault cases on the Navajo Nation. Most importantly, those cases involved children, and so it's my understanding that Department of Social Services is involved in those cases. If you could provide additional information. Thank you.
Thank you, Madam Chair. The stats that I provided, yes, it's from January to present. And like I said, the stats that are specifically to the domestic violence cases, domestic violence intakes. So when I said victim witness advocates, those are the staff titles. Those are the advocates that are out in the field that complete the intakes based on phone calls or inquiries that they may receive from the public. So that's the 134 new intakes that I reported. Regarding your question about child sexual abuse, that's a different number. I don't have that with me right now because my focus was domestic violence, sexual assaults. So when I hear sexual assaults, I'm thinking domestic violence, but you're talking about child sexual abuse, then I don't have that number right now. And yes, Division of Social Services handles cases that involve child sexual abuse as well. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you, Ms. Yazzie, for that clarification to the report. So this report will focus just on your domestic violence intake. And so the request would be if you can provide the sexual assault cases that your division, all of the programs address. So I have here for when it deals with a child, it would be EPS. And if you could clarify if you have any resources beyond the domestic violence for adults or young adults who and elders who may be dealing with sexual assault as an additional documents from your office in the future. I understand you don't have that information now. Are there any other questions from the committee members for Ms. Yazzie regarding her report?
Delegate Paul Begay.
Yes, Delegate Paul Begay. Please ask your question.
Thank you, Madam Chair, and thank you, Ms. Yazzie, for your report. It was a very quick and short report. I'm wondering, as a committee who is just now meeting for the second time, I think we need to get ourselves really educated on more specifics, meaning rather than just going by agencies or by regions. I'd like to get an understanding, if I'm from Western Agency, to see what the demographics are, where these assaults happen, where what kind they are, what age groups they are. You know, that type of information, I believe, would be more informative to us, just for our committee member awareness, and also to also educate ourselves on what kind of things are going on out on our nation. So hopefully that type of statistics, that type of report would be forthcoming. And also, as far back, I'd like to look at the history also, how far back we can look at these reports and statistics, mainly just to give us an idea of what type of growth it has, whether there's a decline in certain age groups through the years or increase. Those are the type of information I would be interested in. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Delegate Begay. Are there any other questions from committee members?
Madam Chair, this is...
We'll go ahead. Yes, with the question.
Madam Chair, this is Regina Yazzie. Yes, just to answer your question about resources that are available. When we work with domestic violence victims, there are resources available locally, such as in the Shiprock area, Indian Health Service. There's also referrals made outside of Navajo, within the Farmington area. There are mental health resources, behavioral health resources, and other shelters that provide such services within their shelter outside of Navajo. The Shiprock shelter does not provide mental health or behavioral health services simply because there are the staff. That's not how the shelter was initially set up. and the staff are not licensed or qualified to provide those types of specific services to the residents. Therefore, residents are referred out, and transportation services are provided to the residents themselves. In addition, the victim witness advocates that are out in the field here on Navajo, they provide referrals, resources, as well as transportation for the victims that are under caseload. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you, Ms. Yazzie. There was a few other questions that Delegate Begay had asked regarding age groups. Where are they happening? Do you have any insight on to answer those questions? Thank you.
Regarding demographics, it appears majority of the referrals, new intakes are between the ages of 25 and 59 in terms of intakes, and majority of them are females.
Ms. Yazzie, can you, thank you, Ms. Yazzie. Can you just clarify with those demographics, what are you referring to? Are you referring to, please help the committee understand. Is this still just the domestic violence intakes?
Yes.
Delegate Paul Begay is asking about the sexual assault cases.
Yes, they are domestic violence intakes that I'm referring to, yes.
Okay. Thank you, Ms. Yazzie, for that clarification. Do you have any information on the age groups of sexual assault cases happening on Navajo Nation?
No, I don't. Other than just the three that I mentioned, and 20 as of, let's see, what did I say, 2020? Of the 2020 stats that I provided at the Shiprock shelter, of the 32 residents that are residents there at the shelter, 3 of the residents reported the type of abuse involved sexual assault. That's the only number I have right now. But the age group of those 3 residents, I don't have.
Thank you, Ms. Yazzie. Do you have any members of your team that would have that information on the call?
No.
Because, so I know this is your first time reporting to the committee, but the history of and how Division of Social Services helps and supports the Sexual Assault Prevention Subcommittee is providing a history or providing data on what are some of the trends that are happening out on Navajo Nation. And one of the trends was an escalation of sexual assault of children under the age of 12. And in particular, we saw this in the Western Agency. But what we were concerned about as a committee was the number of referrals to the federal agents was decreasing, while our medical providers were seeing an increase in cases. I think at this point, if you can work with your staff to possibly get briefed, because we would need to know from this point in time what is the new data, and in particular during the pandemic on how these cases have been reported and the support given to the survivors. And what leads me to a few other questions is if Department of Social Services is participating in these MDTs. And if you can provide us any update in if social work, what programs are participating in the MDTs in each agency, and how consistent are they in providing that support at these MDT meetings? Thank you.
Thank you, Madam Chair. This will be at a future meeting, or I don't have all that information right now, Madam Chair.
Okay. Yes, thank you, Ms. Yazzie, for letting the committee know that you'll need additional time. What could be the starting point is looking at the last trends that were provided to the committee, and just updating that data in terms of sexual assault and the role that your different departments played. Other questions to consider for the next report is if, and maybe I believe that you can possibly answer this now, is the trauma-informed care training that social services receive. And if you can let the committee know how your division is involved with the school system and making sure is our like child wellness check still taking place as we've had to deal with the pandemic, and how are we coordinating with the schools? And then the last question would be how is the division following up with victims that are prosecuted federally? We are finding from families that there's little to no support for families as they deal with going through the federal system, especially after sentencing. And so if you could either answer those questions or let the committee know if you need more time, and we can expect a follow-up report. Thank you.
Madam Chair, regarding the coordinated work with the schools, as far as I know, reports that I've received from verbal reports that I've received from the field offices is that there are limitations there. Schools are closed, remain closed, and some schools are all completely online. So families that come to the attention of social services, those are the families and children that our workers are aware of in terms of current cases or intakes that are happening. So regarding online classes and courses that are being taken, we understand as a division that those are being handled directly by the care providers, the parents themselves, and the homes. In terms of ongoing resources for these families, it is understood that the schools are doing what they can to provide what is needed to have online courses successful for these children. That is understood. And regarding your other question about the statistics about Tuba City area, I'm going to need to get more information on that. I was just briefly informed as to perhaps an issue that may have arose in, I believe it was 2018, if I'm correct, and regarding referrals and coordinated work or their lack of between the Tuba City Field Office and the FBI in terms of reports. I was made aware of that, but in terms of the number of cases and how that coordination has improved, I will need more time to address that. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you, Ms. Yazzie, for answering some of the questions and requesting additional time. Committee members, are there any other questions from the committee? I do want to ask, we do have, because this is streaming live, we do have community members who are there particular hotspots in regards to certain areas, and what type of level of care is needed, and is there a crisis stabilization plan or treatment being provided? Thank you. Ms. Yazzie, if you can answer that question.
According to the victim witness statistics, again, these are the victim witness advocates, workers out in the field. Most of the 2020 cases are coming
OBI is the one that came on board recently, and prosecutor is starting to use it a little bit more effectively. Again, but that's again mainly for employee background checks. So, in a nutshell, that's what we're doing with TAP, Madam Chair.
Thank you, and I recognize the challenges. And so, if I may ask, I'll have to have the help of Delegate Vince Jane if this can be another area that we ask Law and Order Committee to assist in understanding the challenges and how we can move the TAP forward. And so just as a time check, I know that there's another committee starting at 1 o'clock. Are there any other questions, committee members, before we take the vote?
Well, Madam Chair, if I may, I had like one comment to make.
Oh, yes. Please proceed.
Thank you. Yeah. I believe judicial branch can play an important role in, it doesn't have to be protection orders, or it doesn't have to be their probation department can utilizing TAP more effectively. Let's just not concentrate on protection orders. Let's concentrate on what, how the probation officers get information on their probation. And that would be, I think, an ideal start with judicial branch to get them more involved and start utilizing TAP. I think you were aware that Mr. Chris Cheney from the U.S. DOJ did come out, and we were ready to prepare to present the judicial branch, and unfortunately they declined at the last minute. We do have judges, and we showed a couple of probation officers from the districts what TAP can do, and they were enthusiastic about how this might be beneficial for judicial branch. So if Law and Order can help in that aspect, then that would be greatly appreciated. Yeah, thank you.
Yeah, thank you for that. And this is something we have to get right, and it could be so beneficial to our nation. Committee members, are there any other questions or comments regarding Mr. Bowman and Director Henderson's report? Not hearing any, can we move to the vote? Shadeja, if you're still there, if you could help with the vote roll call, thank you.
Okay. Honorable Nathaniel Brown is excused. Honorable Vince James, how do you vote?
Delegate Jane votes green.
Honorable Vince James votes green.
Committee members, I know that we're transitioning to other meetings, but I do need a second for the executive session.
This is Delegate James' question in regards to second. Was it requested to go into executive session? I don't see it on the agenda. Thank you.
Thank you, Delegate James. I apologize. The committee, we did suspend the floor rules, and we moved report letter D to the end of the report, and it was asked to be in executive session.
Okay, with that, I'll go ahead and second the motion.
Okay, thank you for the second. Are there any other questions or concerns on the executive session? If I could ask committee members before going straight to executive session, if we can get Ms. Patterson to introduce herself to the public that are listening and provide as much information publicly, and then we could move into executive session. Is it okay with the motioning party? Delegate Stewart, are you okay with that?
Yes.
Thank you. Delegate Vince James, are you okay as a second?
Oh.
Thank you. Shadeja, if you could help us with the vote, thank you.
Honorable Nathaniel Brown is excused. Honorable Vince James, how do you vote?
Delegate James votes green.
Honorable Vince James votes green. Honorable Wilson Stewart Jr., how do you vote?
Green.
Honorable Wilson Stewart Jr. votes green. Honorable Paul Begay, how do you vote? Honorable Paul Begay, how do you vote? Honorable Eugene So, how do you vote? Honorable Eugene So. Chair, you have 2 in favor, 0 opposed, and 4 not voting.
Thank you, committee members. At this time, we do not have quorum, and so we cannot move into executive session. I know, Ms. Patterson, you did have Ms.
federal law my entire career. I originally new brand new attorney. I their their departments and also their legislation branch. In 2011, I came to the U.S. Attorney's Office, and I've been there ever since. I currently am assigned to the eastern part of Navajo Nation, exclusively in Arizona, which typically includes Window Rock, Chinle, Ganado, all the way up to Tisnos Pass, Sanders. All of my caseload comes from that area. I've been exclusively working Navajo Nation during my entire time in Indian country and violent crime. In 2018, I was appointed the tribal liaison for the office, and I've been in that capacity for a number of years. As part of my duties as a tribal liaison, I am the coordinator, I liaison between all the 22 tribes in Arizona. I also provide information based off of training, based off of information that comes down from our main DOJ to our tribal partners. I try to maintain that relationship with all the 22 nations in Arizona. But I will say that Navajo keeps me very busy, which is just fine by me, given that I'm an enrolled member. I think it's important for me to be involved, and this is just another way that I see myself as giving back to the tribe. So that's me. I also have another person who is on the line with me, AUSA Alex Samuels, and I wanted to just give him an opportunity also to introduce himself.
Good afternoon, everyone. This is Alex Samuels, and like Kyoko, I'm an assistant U.S. attorney at the U.S. Attorney's Office here in Phoenix. My position currently is that I am the chief of one of our two Indian country crime sections. Here in Arizona, we have two Indian country crime sections, which are divided roughly geographically, and I'm in charge of the section that covers most of the northern Arizona tribes. And so most of the cases, or I should say most of the AUSAs who are handling cases from Navajo Nation are in my
That's your question.
Thank you. Committee members, you did answer the question. Committee members, do you have any other questions or comments? U.S. Attorney. Hearing that, I thank you for report and what you were able to provide publicly. I did send the information to McDonald to send out to your team, and if they're available, we can have a conversation off about some of the more sensitive nature of the cases.
Yes,
and sort of coordinate. Thank you. Committee members, if there's no other questions for the U.S. Attorney's Office, that does conclude our meeting. Are there any announcements before we end this meeting?
Madam Chair, this is Hope.
Hello, Hope.
I think we have Cassandra Morgan on the line. If we could just hear from her real briefly so that we could add it to the next agenda.
Yes, thank you, Ms. McDonald-Lotree. Ms. Morgan, and if by hearing no concerns from my committee members, Ms. Cassandra Morgan wants the committee to address military sexual trauma. Are there any concerns from the committee members in hearing from her? Hearing none. Okay, thank you, Delegate Stewart. Hearing none, Ms. Morgan, can you provide a brief introduction and some of the issues that have been raised so that we can add it to our next agenda? Thank you.
Yes, good afternoon, Madam Chair. My name is Cassandra Morgan. Tohe Glini and Chle, Kila Chitney Bushachin, Kiani Dashche Do, Tobaha Dashnele. I'm a United States Marine Corps veteran. Currently I serve as the Fort Defiance Agency Women's Representative, also the commander for the Wide Range Veterans Organization. I appreciate the committee listening to me today. My address is dealing with military sexual trauma within the military, and also aftercare when they become discharged from active duty, the services that could be rendered to men and women who are veterans who come back to the reservation and not have the adequate services provided to them, so that way they won't continue the cycle. And so that's kind of what I wanted to address the issue with, because currently there's a big movement going forward after the Vanessa Guillen incident that happened at Fort Hood. She was an Army soldier there who was stalked by one of her leaders and ended up being missing, and they ended up found her dead and dismembered. So, that's an extreme example, but those, things like that happen in the military. And so I know for our female veterans, Navajo women veterans, when they come back, they don't have a resource or things that are readily available for the woman, things to deal with the women veteran issues. So that's what I'm looking at. I know that what they're looking at now is Senator Christian Gilbrandt is looking at having the Military Justice Improvement Act coming up, and those things are going to include the criminal investigation of the Specialist Guillen's death, investigation of the Fort Hood Command. They're looking at making sexual harassment and bystander involvement real crimes under Article 134, Title 10 of the U.S. Code. And so also changing military training becomes a regular part of daily work, and men and women can identify sexual harassments in the same terms. So, all these things that are coming up that affect our Navajo women veterans as well. I know in Fort Defiance Agency, I did recently do a drive, and I know there's at least 33 women veterans, but a lot of them don't come forward to be involved with the chapter, the local veterans organizations, whether it be possibly, some of the harassment or maybe even some of the trauma they face while on active duty. So I'd like to have these addressed. I know they were saying that the 1 in every 4 female responds yes to a military sexual trauma question while they file for their benefits, whereas 1 in 100 men do. So they're both, both men and women are the victim of sexual assault while in the military. But the statistic is these are the ones that just apply. The ones that don't apply are the ones that are still falling through the cracks. So, and I know a lot of our female veterans, Navajo women veterans, do not apply for benefits because they have to go through these traumas to get a rating for any type of service-connected disability. So, if the subcommittee here could take action on, putting some kind of funding or some kind of help for these men and women veterans after they come back from the service. See what we could do, what can we develop here for Navajo, for our warriors. I know we hold all our Navajo veterans in high esteem because of the service they've done. Our language did save the country, and we continue to thrive on our heritage and our enthusiasm for preserving all that we have here. So, once we come back, that we're looking for our own people. So if we could provide some kind of service for our veterans who return on that issue right there, that would be great. So I know it's a quick rundown, but that's what I was trying to figure out if the committee would do, just some kind of services that will be available for the veterans when they return. Thank you. I'll be open to any questions.
Thank you, Ms. Morgan. Are there any questions from the committee members? We will add that to our next agenda, and we'll ask Health and Education Human Services staff if there's been any updates and reports on some of the issues regarding military sexual trauma. Hearing no comments or questions, colleagues, we are at the end of our agenda. And so I will call this meeting to an end. We did lose quorum, but I want to thank you for being on the call. I text out the call-in number if you want to hear the rest of the report from the U.S. Attorney's Office. Please call in that number as once we get off of this line, I'll call into that line. So thank you for that report. Are there any other questions or comments? Okay, hearing none, by consensus, we'll end this meeting. Thank you very much. And for all of the advocates, survivors, and relatives who joined us and engaged in the conversation and are willing to help us, we appreciate the work that you do, and look forward to having you as part of our working group to provide solutions for the healing of our nation. Thank you.
Committee members get the number? Did the committee members get the number?
Yes, I text the number out to the committee members.
Okay, great. Thank you.
Thank you. We'll jump on that call, Hope, and we'll need your help to facilitate that session. Thank you. I'm signing.